Hello, everyone. Welcome back to this week's Cedarville Stories Podcast. I'm Mark Weinstein, and it's great to be with you to share another story of God's faithfulness in and through the lives of my guests. Today, I'm talking with Dr. John Mohler and his wife, Lou Ann, and we'll talk about their 40-year ministry at Patterson Park Church in Beaver Creek, Ohio. So let's go to my conversation with John and Lou Ann Mohler on this week's Cedarville Stories Podcast. John and Lou Ann, thanks for joining me today in studios. I've been waiting for this podcast for a while. And I want to really talk about your 40 years together in ministry at Patterson Park. That's the bulk of today's program. But before we get there, I want to start at the beginning because Cedarville is central to your story. It's where you met. How did you find Cedarville University as a student back in the day, Lou Ann?
Well, heard about it through a gal that was attending here. She was the daughter of our pianist at church. And I came and visited her, spent the night with her, and really liked it. It was a lot smaller back then. You know, I think I stayed in Maddox Hall.
Did you?
Yeah. And so we had a good time, and I applied, got accepted, and showed up in September. It was later. We were on quarters then, not semesters. So.
And you're originally from Michigan?
I am from Michigan.
Okay. So you made a little bit of a trek from
home. I was kind of looking for a place that was maybe a little farther than a half an hour away from home.
Yeah.
So I could live away from home.
Yeah. What about you, John? You're an Ohio boy. How did you find Cedarville University?
Yes, I'm from Northeast Ohio. Back in the fall of 1967, my oldest brother and a cousin had heard about Cedarville, and they came and enrolled as freshmen, 1967. And that was the beginning of a long line of family members who have attended Cedarville. I think there are almost 20 of us right now. My siblings, her siblings, our children, our nieces and nephews, and coming this fall will be the fourth generation of freshmen is coming. Yes, one of my great nephews will be a freshman here in the fall. But Lou Ann and I were both in the concert chorale at the time, and that's where we met. And we dated for a few years and got married right after college.
You have any fun backstory about this dating relationship with John, Lou Ann?
I stood next to his brother Tom in chorale.
Not his twin, right?
No, his twin didn't come.
Okay.
But all the other siblings came. And so I knew Tom better than John at that point in time. But he asked me out one day in late February of our freshman year, and it was like 78 degrees. It was beautiful. We went in a convertible, over to the Indian Mound and walked around there, and all he did was talk about his old girlfriends. It was really interesting.
John, is that true?
That's the way she remembers it.
How long you been married? Doesn't matter, does
It'll
it?
be 46 years next month.
Yeah, so 46 years.
I've learned to say yes, dear.
He did hold my hand, though.
On the first date?
At the first date,
Very forward for Cedarville, yes.
Yeah, that is. That is really neat. So when you guys came to school, Lou Ann, you studied communication arts, and John was music education. Did you both want to be teachers?
Yeah, I did. I always wanted to be a band director. That was my goal. As you'll hear later, God had other plans for that.
Right. Where did your career begin then? Because it did start in education, didn't it?
Correct. After graduation, we got married. We took teaching jobs in Des Moines, Iowa for 2 years, and then came back to Dayton to teach. I taught band and orchestra at Dayton Christian for a number of years, and Lou Ann taught there as well. Mm-hmm. You taught speech and English and drama, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you gave a little nonverbal, like you really didn't want to be a teacher. What did you want to do?
Well, I ended up in the secondary education field, and I probably should have stayed where I originally started, was elementary.
Okay.
Because that was my gifting. I just work really well with younger children, and the second half of after I had my kids, I ended up directing a preschool for about 12 years in Kettering. And so it was a pretty big job. It had about 200 kids enrolled. And so we had a lot. It was fun. And I enjoyed being with that age group. So, but that was okay. It was still part of the education. I got some early childhood, credits when I became a director there.
Okay. So. Collectively, from my research, you both worked in education for about 25 years between the two of you.
Yeah.
And then the decision came for you to go into church ministry. What factors were in play that took you from education to really what's now been a 40-year ministry at Patterson Park?
Right. Well, I think some of the foundations for a heart for ministry were established when we were students. I think we recognized our calling to full-time ministry.
Yeah.
And we considered what we were doing in education just that. And as I reached about the 15-year point of teaching, I realized that my heart was really drawn to church ministry. Mm-hmm. And so there was some overlap for a few years, but I became, I have had many different titles at Patterson Park.
You have?
Yes. Yes. So currently I'm a pastor of worship and operations. So we started on that role in 1985, and it's been about 40 years.
And Lou Ann, did you, as I show the group this bulletin cover from earlier this year, did you envision John being in church ministry or at Patterson Park for that long a time?
In church ministry, but not necessarily at Patterson Park.
So did you envision being at Patterson Park for 40 years?
No way. So it just, the time just kept on passing. God did not give us an exit strategy or an urging to do something else, and that was part of His plan.
So I recently heard this past week at a Rotary meeting from Joe Godwin, one of our teaching pastors. I go to Patterson Park as well. And as you know, I'm not telling you anything new. But what he said that to the group that of the 6 pastors on staff, that they accumulate 100 years of ministry. Is that unique in church ministry?
It's unheard of. I believe, especially in the area of worship ministry. There's a lot of turnover in the music field. Mm-hmm. But we have 6 pastors, 3 of whom are Cedarville alum.
Right.
And I think the longevity says a lot about the church. It's a safe place. It's a good place to grow.
Yeah.
And we've enjoyed a lot of harmony and unity through the years.
Yeah. Now, when I break down that 100 years, though, so I'm doing the math in my mind right now, 60 plus years is you and Joe.
Right.
Okay, so speak to, that kind of, in my mind, speaks to a very healthy church because you have stability with the older people. I'm not saying you're old, but, you know.
We are.
We are
no,
old.
You're young.
Older.
But you have some young pastors coming up behind you that speaks well to the church. Do you see it that way?
Yes, and they often point out the value of having older mentors. Between Joey and Nick, 2 of our younger pastors, it's great for them to learn from our mistakes and to draw from our wisdom.
Yeah.
David Boucher has been there. It'll be 20 years.
True. I forgot about Boo.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's 80 years.
Yep.
Between 3 guys. So you guys won't all be there forever, we know, but
when I leave, there goes the numbers, well.
yeah, we have to change the data.
Right.
So during your years, I'm interested in both your perspectives. How have you seen Patterson Park grow? From my observation, we've been there 15 years, roughly 14, 15 years, and the unity there is unspeakable. It seems rare. What's the driving factor behind the unity among the congregation? Because it's special.
A lot of prayer.
Okay.
Also, we like each other, and body ministry is very important. The pastoral staff, we probably have better unity on our pastoral staff than we've ever had in the 75-year history of the church. And it's, like I said before, it's just a safe place and a place of great love and unity.
Yeah. So where did Patterson Park begin? Maybe you can give a little history of Patterson Park and then speak to also how you've seen the Lord use the staff and the congregation to grow physically, spiritually, emotionally.
Well, the church began as a Grace Brethren church. I think that's your background, isn't it, Mark?
Well, I did go to a Grace Brethren School. Yes,
That's right. It started as a Grace Brethren Church as a church plant in 1950. And it's grown through the years. We've been in about 3 different locations. We were in Dayton for many years, and we moved to Beaver Creek in 92. But the fact that it's a non-denominational church has its amenities and its liabilities.
Okay.
And I think there are people who would go to Patterson Park Church that wouldn't necessarily go to a church that was drawn closely to a denomination.
Why is that?
I don't know. Maybe there's a stigma.
Yeah.
Let's say somebody that was raised in the Catholic faith and they came to Patterson Park Church. It's a non-denominational church. Rather than telling their families that, yes, I'm going to the Assembly of God Church or the Baptist Church, they're going to a non-denominational church.
Yeah. And I've seen, and I'm sure you have as well, a lot of churches seem to be dropping their denomination from their name, maybe for that reason.
Yeah, I think a lot of them still have it in the fine print. But
Sure.
Well, when you go to talk about the growth of the church, when it started growing, when we came, it was like barely 200 people.
Seriously.
Yeah, it was very small.
So when did it start growing?
About that time, I don't know, 4 or 5 years into us being involved.
So late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
What was going on that caused, when you say grow, I assume you mean by numbers of people attending, or how would you measure growth?
Well, I would say in that respect, it was more numbers.
Okay.
I think the budget increased, the outreach increased, the community impressions of the church improved, and it became a church that people were drawn to. And
it was a young church then. I mean, there were a lot of young people involved.
And there still are today. If you look at the demographics of our church, our children and our senior citizens are our 2 largest people groups.
Mm-hmm. And I'll confess, so when we were visiting churches after we just moved to the Dayton area, Lisa found Patterson Park, and I said, yeah, let's go visit. And one of the first services, we were meeting in the gym. I'm in the back, I'm thinking, I can't go here. Look at all those old people.
Yeah.
I'm that person.
You was one.
I am one of those. And actually, when I look at those and I think who those people are, they're my age now. So, who am I to say that? So,
that's right.
Right.
What are some distinctives that you really get excited about Patterson Park and where it is today and where it's going in the future?
Mm-hmm. Missions is huge at the church. A big portion of the budget.
Of course, John does such a great job with the music. I mean, I don't think there's very many churches out there with a full choir and orchestra.
Yeah.
Like we have.
No.
And so, but, we've been involved with a missions trip to Albania for the last almost 10 years now. We started going in 16.
Really?
That was our first year. Yeah.
And we developed relationships with some of the crew missionaries there, and some of their children are coming to Cedarville now.
They are.
We have sponsored 2 of the crew staff members' children who are our students here now, and I believe another one's coming this fall.
Yep.
So when you said the budget increased for missions, or it just increased, isn't the budget for missions like 20-25%?
Yes, it is. Mm-hmm.
And that's unheard of. It seems like, at least in my experiences of churches that I've attended.
Yeah.
It speaks to a real passion to share the gospel.
I think our budget for next year will be $2.6 million, and 25% of that goes to missions.
That's great. So, Lou Ann, you took me to my next question, really. I want to talk about the music, because that's really John's giftedness, and yours as well. But it seems unique to me that a church has, a full orchestra and a full choir. Why was that important for you to start that? Or why was it important to have those 2 elements in our worship services?
When we first came, there was no orchestra.
Okay.
I
figured that.
I think John started it in the summer. He had this summer band thing that we did, and we would get it all kind of going for a Good Neighbor Sunday. That was the big thing, Good Neighbor Sunday. And so we would invite all the neighbors to come in and have a big meal, and the band would be playing, and then that got transferred into doing it for Easter and Christmas. And by the time we moved out to the new church, we had an orchestra.
Yeah. John made sure there was an orchestra pit in there, right?
Yes, Walt Price was instrumental in that as well. One of our elders who plays in the orchestra.
Yes.
So we have an orchestra pit, and I think my gifting was in instrumental music, so it seemed natural that we would try to emphasize the instrumental part of our worship services.
So when I think of our worship services, I think of the music, maybe the most contentious part of a church is probably music, right? People disagree with music style, and you hear that a lot.
Oh yeah, I used to see my email on Monday mornings.
Or when they leave, could we have more hymns, please?
Yeah,
You know?
I'm sure. But so my question, John, is how do you blend the music that we hear on contemporary Christian music like Hope in Dayton or K-Love with the traditional hymns? Because both bring value.
Yes.
But how do you blend the two so that it's a truly blended service?
Well, it's hard to blend styles, but if you look at the themes, if you blend themes, it's much easier. Like this coming Sunday is our Communion Sunday.
Right.
And we're going to sing a time-honored hymn about the grace of God. And from there, we're going to sing a modern hymn, Matt Papa and Keith Getty piece.
Okay.
So having just a variety of styles that appeal to all ages, and that's one thing that we've focused on is thematically unifying our services.
Yeah.
It's interesting that there's younger people now really wanting more of a liturgical type setting in a church. And, not that a rock band or a worship band is bad, but if that's all you have, it's refreshing to have something different.
Yeah, we had a praise band last Sunday.
Yeah, we have one every 3 weeks because the choir gets a week off every month.
Right.
So, these people who maybe complain a little bit, we go, well, do you want to go to church with your grandchildren or not?
Yeah.
So yeah. And the grandkids then get the old hymns instilled in them as well, because a lot of them don't know them.
Why do you think a younger crowd is turning more toward the liturgical traditional services?
I think it's for a sense of security, a sense of history.
Meaning, maybe?
Our society is so fractured and contentious. I think having something that's standard and something that's has stood the test of time brings some security to young people.
So when you're preparing for a worship service, you do it every week. What's your process? How do you go about planning? You're not planning the sermon per se, but you're giving Joe or whoever's preaching the timeline.
Right.
What's your process to put that together?
Well, the fact that we have a choir and orchestra means that we have to plan ahead quite a bit. So months, you have to order the music, you have to process the music, you have to practice the music weeks rather than just a week ahead. And then, so a lot of it is already in place, but we try to have a little bit of flexibility. I ask the pastors if they can, when they're getting ready to speak, if they can give me what I call the 3 T's: a title, a text, and a takeaway.
Okay.
And that will help me to find themes that we can center the worship, the music around.
So as we near the end of today's podcast, I know, John, you've already told us as a congregation that you're stepping away slowly. Mm-hmm. What, if you want to answer, what are your retirement plans at this point?
Yes, I feel very strongly that I want to leave the church in a good position. Mm-hmm. And I know it's difficult to follow someone who's been there as long as I have. So I want to position the church for success and for the worship ministry to continue to have effectiveness and strong leadership. So we're working on that with the elders right now. And as a matter of fact, I'm having a meeting next week to talk with one of our elders about a little bit more detail to my transition and succession plan.
So and you may not want to answer this, but are we looking at like maybe a few years out or more in terms of months?
Somewhere between the months and years.
I've zeroed in on it. Okay. I understand.
Maybe closer to months than years, but
I wrote my doctoral dissertation on worship ministry, leadership, transition, and succession. And it's important for me to practice what I preach. Yeah. And I've all along thought that aging pastors need to have a good plan for professional development, spiritual development, physical development, and have a plan that's going to benefit the church.
Yeah, and I know it was important for John to make it through this year of the 75th anniversary. Why was that important to you?
I don't know. It's almost like a walk through time. It's been a good time to reminisce and to focus on God's faithfulness to not only to us as a couple, but to the church. Yeah.
So when you think about all the celebrations that have taken place, so this podcast we're in June, what have been some of your highlights of the celebration?
Well, every other month we're focusing on a different era of the church. We started back in February talking about the early years.
Yep.
And then in April we looked at the transitional years, and we just finished looking at the growing years. And in July we're going to look at the moving years, when we moved out of Dayton and moved into Beaver Creek. And then in September, I believe, we're going to focus on the Beaver Creek years and getting established in Beaver Creek. And then in November, we're going to look at the present and the future of the church.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So just a minute ago, you mentioned about your doctoral dissertation. So you've completed a doctorate. How are you using that degree? How do you hope to use that degree going forward in your retirement years?
Yeah, I don't think that I should completely retire and go fishing or golfing all day. So I've started doing a lot of teaching, and I teach quite a few courses for Liberty University right now, and I do teach one master's level course here at Cedarville. So that keeps me in education. It keeps me focused on worship ministry and staying current with the research and what's going on in worship ministry, which, by the way, has just changed so much in my 40 years.
How so?
Well, I think just like anything, when we first got married, there was no such thing as a VCR or a microwave or a computer or cell phones, and the technology has
changed a lot.
Right, and these are great tools that could be used for the benefit of the kingdom or can work against the kingdom. Yeah. So. Mm-hmm. Recognizing the cultural changes, but also recognizing the things that never change.
And I have noticed, typically where I sit, I have a good view of John playing the piano at the end of the service. And I have noticed, I don't know when this happened, but you've gone away from paper sheet music to a computer or iPad and flipping. Yeah. When did that happen?
He has a little foot pedal he pushes too. It changes the
A lot of our musicians are using iPads in the orchestra pit. It saves on paper. It saves on cords and lights and things like that. So gone digital.
Very, very cutting edge.
Yeah.
Well, we have some
battery operated lights. I mean, the cords were a mess for a long time. You trip over them and in the pit and everything.
Yeah. But we have a lot of great people that work with our technical support, and my assistant Amy Weinstein, another Cedarville grad, is just a tremendous assistant.
Yeah. So, John and Lou Ann, when you're not at church working your ministry, what do you guys like to do as a couple? How do you guys let your hair down, have fun, serve, whatever it is? What do you guys like to do?
Well, we're grandparents.
I do.
And we spend a lot of time going to ball games with them and trying to find time to do things with our family.
Okay.
So they both live in town here, which is nice. And we have a ball game tonight. We're going to miss it, though, because we'll be at the Dragons game with with all the Patterson Park people.
I'll be there.
Okay.
Yep.
So
Lou Ann likes to knit.
I do knit.
She likes to watch movies.
We play cards.
We play
sometimes.
cards. We like to go out with
people.
friends. We like vacationing. We like traveling.
Yeah, we do.
I stay pretty busy, and when I do retire, I'm going to have to learn from Lou Ann how to relax a little bit. I do.
He doesn't do it well.
Is that going to be a challenge, Lou Ann, for him?
Yes. it will
Yeah,
be.
I do a lot of yard work. I enjoy that. I have a motorcycle that I ride some, not as much as I'd like to, but
His relaxing is doing something.
Right.
My relaxing is not doing something.
John, you need to learn that.
I'll try to be a good student.
Oh, anyway.
I'm sure you will. So, John and Lou Ann, when you think about your time at Patterson Park and it's time for you to totally step away full time, what memories are going to come to mind? What's going to stick out for you and be very meaningful for you?
Well, for me, it's going to be the people, the staff members that I've worked with over the years. We've seen a lot come and go. And the people who have been loyal to the church for so many years. There are many people in the church who've been there longer than I have. And it's great to reminisce with them as we've had our 75th anniversary recently.
Yep.
We've been able to take a look back at some of those early years. So the people and the lives have been transformed. Those are the things that are going to stand out for me.
How about you, Lou Ann?
It was the same thing with John, but it was really emotional for me to see John in the sanctuary, the new sanctuary, when he was in front of the, choir and orchestra.
Yeah.
In a place where I knew he'd always dreamt of being. Yeah.
So, Lou Ann, when you think of Patterson Park today and knowing that the Lord's really used John in a real significant transformational way, speak to that fact, that truth from a wife's perspective.
Uh-oh.
That's a real hard question. Well, I'm proud of him.
Yeah.
He's done a great job. I think the church appreciates him.
We do. We do.
It hasn't always been easy. A little lonely sometimes. I go to church alone,
Right.
But it's okay. It's been worth it.
You wouldn't trade it.
No.
Yeah. Does that surprise you, John?
No. You get the Kleenex box out here. So she's been just a tremendous assistant through the years and partner. Her musical skills and her skills in hospitality have been very much appreciated and indispensable in the ministry that we've had through the years.
Guys, thanks for joining me on the podcast. It's great to spend a little time with you and just let you talk about your ministry. Thank you for your ministry to Patterson Park. I've been blessed by it. I know my family has as well. So thank you for all you do.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you for inviting us.
And you're welcome back to small group anytime.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for listening to the Cedarville Stories Podcast, brought to you by Cedarville University. Be sure to come back next week when we'll share another Cedarville story for God's glory.